The crystalline chamber of the Galactic Federation headquarters on Orion 5 gleamed under the artificial light, refracting a kaleidoscope of colors across the assembled representatives of 15 different species. Captain Mara Cyrus stood at the human delegation's podium, her weathered face betraying the fatigue of someone who had led a recent hostage rescue mission in the frontier zones. Beside her, Dr. Felix Lang, Earth's leading engineer, adjusted his collar nervously as the murmurs of the alien delegates grew louder. "And so, esteemed colleagues," Mara continued, "humanity requests additional resource allocation for our frontier colonies. Our ships have been instrumental in mapping the Cronus sector despite their unconventional propulsion systems." A ripple of barely suppressed laughter spread across the chamber. Vextor, the Aquilarian counselor, leaned forward on his gelatinous support structure, his translucent blue skin pulsing with amusement. "Unconventional," Vextor's voice bubbled through his speech modulator. "Captain Cyrus, I'm told you still import purified O2 from Earth every month? For your, what do you call them? Oxy-combustion engines. Such primitive technology." Grand Admiral Quiox of the Xerilian fleet tapped his metallic exoskeleton against the crystal table, creating a sharp, mocking chime. "While we harness quantum vacuum energy, you humans still insist on burning your way through space? Do you also cook your meals over open flames?" The chamber erupted in laughter. Even the usually stoic Krath representatives clicked their mandibles in amusement. Mara stood rigid, her jaw clenched. 20 years since Earth had joined the Federation, and still, they were treated as technological infants. Dr. Felix Lang placed a calming hand on her shoulder, then stepped forward. "It's true," Felix admitted, his voice steady despite the ridicule. "We do burn oxygen, but our ships can store enough for an entire fleet to operate for 6 months without complex refinement processes." Vextor's skin rippled in disbelief. 6 months? And what happens when your quantum drive fails in deep space? Your ships become expensive coffins. Felix activated a holographic projection, displaying the schematic of a massive O2 container mounted beneath a human vessel. "When darkness falls, when solar storms disrupt subspace fields, or when quantum energy is depleted, our engines still run, as long as we have the most basic element, oxygen." The chamber descended into chaos as various delegates shouted their opinions. Some found the human approach quaintly amusing, others outright primitive. Captain Mara was about to respond when the chamber's emergency alert system bathed everything in crimson light. A frantic Fraxian officer burst through the chamber doors, his crystalline armor reflecting the red warning lights. "The Draxnar Collective has invaded Deltar 4. They've destroyed the Federation's 7th Fleet just days ago." The mockery ceased instantly. Marshal Rinzal of the Fraxian Military Command rose from his seat, his voice a harsh rasp through his exoskeleton's vocoder. "We're at death's door. The Draxnar make no distinction between species or technological capabilities. Everything must be deployed immediately." In the sudden silence, all eyes turned to the human delegation. Vextor's skin had paled to an almost translucent white. "Well then," he said with considerably less mockery, "let's see if these oxygen engines of yours can help ease this interplanetary conflict crisis." Captain Mara Cyrus exchanged a glance with Dr. Felix Lang. In the midst of crisis, humanity would either prove its worth to the Federation or watch it crumble. The Federation Emergency Council convened in the war room beneath Orion 5's main chambers. Holographic displays showed the advancing Draxnar fleet, black, angular ships that resembled predatory sea creatures from Earth's oceans. "We must immediately deploy FTL jumps for our elite fleets," Admiral Quiox insisted, his metallic fingers manipulating the three-dimensional star chart. "We can intercept them at the Cronus boundary." "With what fuel?" Marshal Rinzal countered. "The Quantum 40 refineries on Cronus have been destroyed. Our reserves are critically low." The assembled delegates fell silent. Without Quantum 40, their advanced ships were little more than floating metal hulks. Captain Mara cleared her throat. "If I may—" "Oh yes, let's hear the human solution," Vexter interrupted, his earlier fear giving way to renewed sarcasm. "Will you suggest we all start rowing?" "Continue that line of thought, Counselor," Mara replied coolly. "And you can explain to your people why you refused help while the Draxnar were bombing your homeworld." Vextor's skin flushed dark blue with embarrassment. "At least our stable O2 supply means the Orion fleet can hold position while you're forced to retreat to—" "Enough!" The Federation Chancellor, an ancient Fraxian named Zix, raised his crystalline staff. "Captain Cyrus, Dr. Lang, you have the floor. What do you propose?" Felix stepped forward, activating a new holographic display. "We call it the pressurized oxygen combustion chamber. By increasing the O2 ratio twofold, our current combustion systems can increase thrust by 30% compared to quantum engines when they're low on Quantum 40. He manipulated the display, showing a large cylindrical module. These are oxygen storage modules, OSMs. They can be attached to Federation ships. When quantum tanks run dry, you can switch directly to O2 for breakthrough maneuvers. Felix outlined their three-point proposal. Install OSMs on the 5 best command ships, train mixed crews of humans, Fraxians, and Xerilians to operate them, and deploy an O2 rescue fleet to Delta 4 to save stranded research teams. Silence fell over the room as the alien representatives processed this proposal. Then, surprisingly, Marshal Ringzal spoke up. "It's unorthodox," he admitted, his voice oddly respectful. "But it might work. My engineers could assist with the integration." Chancellor Zix nodded slowly. "Very well. Captain Cyrus, you have temporary command of the UEE's Vanguard. It's one of our Fraxian vessels, but it will serve as your flagship for this mission." Vextor's skin rippled with indignation. "You're putting our lives in the hands of oxygen burners?" "Would you prefer to put them in the hands of the Draxnar?" Chancellor Zix replied simply. The Aquilarian had no answer for that. 3 days later, the UEE's Vanguard's docking bay bustled with activity. 20 human engineers worked alongside a team of skeptical Fraxians, mounting the massive OSM tanks to the underside of the ship. Captain Mara supervised from a gantry above, watching as Dr. Felix Lang directed the complex integration process. "The pressure regulators need to be calibrated to Federation standard metrics," Felix explained to Dr. Rinvax, the lead Fraxian engineer. "Your ships run hotter than ours." Rinvax observed with barely concealed disdain as human technicians installed stainless steel conduits, pressure valves, and hypersensitive pressure sensors. "This technology seems rudimentary," he commented. Felix smiled patiently. "Sometimes rudimentary is reliable. No quantum foam fluctuations, no subspace interference, just oxygen, controlled combustion ratios, and ceramic lutetium heat sinks." Despite himself, Rinvax found his curiosity piqued as the humans worked with surprising efficiency. Their movements were practiced, their solutions elegant in their simplicity. While Fraxian engineers might spend days theorizing about optimal subspace resonance patterns, the humans simply identified problems and fixed them. In the Vanguard simulation chamber, Sergeant Riley, a frontline human pilot, was running through oxygen injection drills with a mixed crew. The simulation pod rocked violently as the virtual engines roared to life. "Oxygen injection at 180%, Riley called out. His face contorted as unexpected G-forces slammed him back into his seat. "Inertial dampeners compensating." The bursts of flame in the virtual combustion chamber were accompanied by the whine of cooling fans working overtime. Beside Riley, Lieutenant Zara, an Aquilarian officer, initially watched with disinterest. But as the simulation progressed, her attention sharpened. When Riley wasn't looking, she surreptitiously recorded the humans' techniques on her personal datapad. In the ship's strategy room, Captain Mara met with the fleet commanders to discuss logistics. Holograms displayed their projected route to Deltar 4. One OSM contains 5,000 tons of liquid O2, she explained. That's enough to power a fleet at high combat intensity for 2 weeks, equivalent to your Quantum 40 consumption. Felix added, "We've designed a refueling station schematic that can be deployed on planets with dense atmospheres, like Maris 4 or Ophidia 7. Think of them as gas stations in space." Admiral Quiox, who had been silently observing until now, leaned forward. "And you can extract oxygen from these atmospheres? Without specialized quantum extraction facilities?" "Exactly," Felix confirmed. "Basic compression technology. Something we've been using on Earth for centuries." For the first time, the Admiral looked at the humans with something other than derision. Perhaps there's more to oxygen than we've given credit for." The UEE's Vanguard and its escort of 4 ships, including the human vessel Valiant and the advanced Fraxian cruiser, emerged from FTL 3 days later on the outskirts of the Deltar 4 system. The bridge was tense as Captain Mara studied the tactical display. "Deltar 4 has been silent for 48 hours, she noted grimly. "Communication waves are weakening." Felix stood beside her, analyzing the sensor readings. This was once a natural hydrogen and oxygen extraction facility. If the Draxnar have captured it, they've not only shut down our oxygen production but cut off a quantum fuel source as well. Lieutenant Riley's voice crackled over the comm from his position on the Valiant. "Captain, we've got company. Draxnar pursuit vessels closing fast." The tactical display lit up with 5 enemy signatures, 3 cruisers, and 2 Hunter-class ships. A garbled transmission came through, the harsh, clicking language of the Draxnar partially translated by the ship's computer. "Sensors indicate 5 Federation vessels. Prepare to intercept." "All ships, activate O2 thrust systems," Mara ordered. "Let's see what these engines can really do." The approach to Deltar 4 revealed a grim scene. The once bustling extraction facility floated dark and seemingly abandoned, emergency lighting casting an eerie red glow through viewport windows. Captain Mara ordered an EVA rescue team, 6 humans and 4 Fraxians, to board the station with portable O2 modules. Dr. Felix supervised as the team carefully removed protective caps from OSM containers, preparing to transfer oxygen to the 3 escort ships waiting nearby. Lieutenant Zara, who had volunteered for the mission despite her earlier skepticism, monitored the transfer. "Transmitting readings to Vanguard," she reported. "Pressure and temperature stable. Continue, Felix." But the Draxnar had anticipated their arrival, believing the oxygen engines would be weak and ineffective. They launched a sudden attack from the shadow of Deltar 4's larger moon. On the Valiant, Riley saw the incoming attack before anyone else. "Evasive maneuvers!" he shouted, engaging the newly installed O2 module. The ship surged forward with twice its normal thrust, dramatically altering its trajectory to avoid a barrage of plasma fire. "They're panicking," Riley's excited voice came over the comm. "The oxygen engines are working too well." One of the Draxnar ships found itself caught in an unexpected trap. As the Valiant accelerated, it created a reverse vacuum that sucked oxygen from the Draxnar's own atmospheric bombs. The resulting plasma flash struck the enemy ship's stern, sending it spinning out of control. Confusion spread through the Draxnar fleet. Their intercepted communications revealed their bewilderment. How are they breathing in space? Are they extracting oxygen from our ships? Captain Glortax of the Draxnar command ship issued frantic orders. "If they truly can drain oxygen, we'll die in our sealed compartments. Deploy the O2 lock squad immediately." The Draxnar, in their panic, had fundamentally misunderstood human capabilities, and that misunderstanding was quickly becoming their undoing. As word of the initial victory at Deltar 4 spread, Federation ships gathered in orbit around Terran Prime, 12 vessels of various designs, most running on depleted Quantum-40 reserves. An emergency strategy session convened aboard the UEE's Vanguard. General Nalvek of the Fraxian fleet looked grim as he reported, "We've lost 70% of our quantum fuel supply. The Draxnar have blockaded all supply routes." Captain Mara and Dr. Felix presented their bold plan. Convert all 12 ships into an O2 combat fleet by equipping each with 2 OSMs and reconfiguring their combustion chambers. By combining oxygen pulses with plasma bursts, Felix explained, we can create shockwaves capable of penetrating the Draxnar's carbonite armor. The next 48 hours saw frantic activity as 5 human engineering teams and 5 Fraxian teams deployed to each ship, connecting oxygen conduits and installing safety sensors before initiating the systems. Valve opened to 47 degrees. O2 flow rate at 5 kilos per second. Came the repeated calls across the fleet as systems were brought online. The Zarelian and Krath representatives observed from a distance, their skepticism evident, but gradually giving way to cautious hope. As preparations neared completion, the perimeter sensors blared a warning. The Draxnar had arrived, 20 warships arranged in the infamous Doombringer formation, armed with dual plasma cannons and ion traps. "Let's see how far oxygen gets you now," Captain Glortax's taunting message boomed across all communication channels. Captain Mara's response was calm and determined. "All ships, engage O2 overdrive. Launch pure oxygen plasma spheres directly at the nearest Draxnar vessel." What followed seemed to unfold in slow motion. The Federation ship UEE's Valor slid up through the Draxnar formation at 0.8 C, a speed made possible only by the oxygen-boosted engines. A column of brilliant red plasma erupted from its combustion chamber, striking a Draxnar cruiser. Metal fragments scattered into space as smoke billowed from small holes in the enemy ship's hull, expanding into a planet-sized plasma flame in the vacuum of space. "They're isolating us," came the panicked Draxnar transmission. "They're faster than us." Following Felix's plan, a squadron of 4 oxygen-burning bombers, retrofitted from OSM modules, pressed toward the Draxnar flagship. Their specialized ammunition released pure O2 into the Draxnar engine compartments, combining with leaking Quantum-40 to create miniature antimatter explosions that tore the enemy ships apart from within. The terrified howls of the Draxnar echoed over the comms. "We're out of air!" The Federation ships continuously repumped oxygen, rotating through the battle formation to maintain their relentless assault. When the Draxnar attempted to retreat, the oxygen-powered fleet pursued with unprecedented speed. The climactic moment came when the Draxnar command ship, the dreadnought Zarak Thul, found itself isolated. Captain Mara piloted the UEE's Vanguard directly through the cooling fin system, reaching the engine port where they pumped 2,000 tons of O2 and detonated a high-dose Dragon's Breath charge. A brilliant red plasma explosion engulfed the area, and the Zarak Thul disintegrated. The remaining Draxnar forces scattered, jumping to FTL to escape. Cheers erupted across the Federation fleet as Earth appeared on their view screens. "The last opponent has retreated." Captain Mara and Dr. Felix exchanged exhausted but satisfied smiles. Across the fleet, the Zarelian, Aquilarian, and Krath representatives looked at each other in newfound respect, realizing that oxygen, the most ordinary element, had proven to be the ultimate strategic material. 2 weeks after the Battle of Terran Prime, the crystalline chamber of the Federation headquarters on Orion 5 was filled once again. But the atmosphere couldn't have been more different. Where once there had been mockery, now there was respect. Where there had been division, now there was unity. The experienced representatives gathered to hear the official report. Over 80% of the Draxnar fleet has been destroyed. The Federation lost surprisingly few command ships, thanks to the remarkable effectiveness of the oxygen engines. Grand Admiral Quayox, whose metallic exoskeleton, now bore battle scars, bowed his head toward the human delegation. "We underestimated you. Congratulations, humanity." Counselor Vextor's skin rippled with genuine sincerity. "Your oxygen backup systems deserve equal standing with any quantum foam project we've pursued all these years." Dr. Felix Lang stepped forward with a proposal. "Let us build a new technological alliance, an integrated tech council, to coordinate between oxygen and quantum technologies. Our goal, never again to allow the Draxnar an opportunity to attack our strategic fuel sources." Captain Mara announced discussions about expanding the human sphere of influence from Terra Prime to the Mornis star system. "We will help build O2 receiving stations to enhance interplanetary defense capabilities." Later that day, a formal ceremony honored humanity's contribution. The hall was decorated with fresh flowers from Fraxian gardens. Crystal water from Fraxian springs filled every glass, and crystal harps played softly throughout the chamber. Grand Chancellor Zix delivered a moving speech. "We once ridiculed oxygen engines, but now, humanity has proven that simplicity can overcome complexity. They are living proof of creative spirit, preservation of core values, and courage." Captain Mara rose to speak on behalf of Earth. "We know we're not the most advanced species, but we bring the value of adaptability, of efficiently using available resources. We hope to work with our Federation allies to cultivate peace and sustainable existence." As the ceremony concluded, Captain Mara gazed through the chamber windows at hundreds of Federation ships, now fitted with OSMs and temporary oxygen engines. Dr. Felix placed a hand on her shoulder, and they shared a smile. "We've proven it," Felix said quietly. "Sometimes, the simplest truth, oxygen, is the most powerful weapon of all." The displays around Orion 5 lit up with the message, "Welcome to the new O2 Era Federation," promising a new age of multi-species technological cooperation. In that moment, humanity had found its place among the stars, not through quantum leaps or subspace mastery, but through the most fundamental element of all, the oxygen that had sustained life on Earth since the beginning. Captain Mara Cyrus stood at the viewport of the UEE's Vanguard, watching the swirling nebula clouds of the Mornis system. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Terran Prime, and the Federation had undergone a remarkable transformation. "Penny, for your thoughts." "Captain?" Dr. Felix Lang joined her, carrying 2 cups of steaming coffee, a luxury that had become surprisingly popular among the Fraxian crews. "Just thinking about how quickly things change," Mara replied, accepting the cup gratefully. 6 months ago, we were the laughingstock of the Federation. Now, we're leading a joint technological revolution. Indeed, the Integrated Tech Council had flourished beyond all expectations. The first hybrid drives, combining quantum foam technology with oxygen combustion systems, were already being tested. Early results showed a 40% increase in efficiency and a 65% increase in reliability. "Admiral Quayox sent a message this morning," Felix said. "The Xerilian High Command has officially approved the construction of 7 major O2 extraction facilities in their territory." Mara smiled. "And the Aquilarians?" "Even better. Counselor Vextor personally requested 30 human engineers to help design underwater oxygen refineries on Aqualis Prime. Apparently, they've discovered that our primitive methods work exceptionally well in their oceanic environment." The door to the observation deck slid open, and Lieutenant Zara entered. The Aquilarian officer had become one of the most enthusiastic converts to oxygen technology, even going so far as to request permanent assignment to the human fleet. "Captain, Doctor," she greeted them with the fluid bow typical of her species. "The new OSM design specifications have been approved unanimously by the Council. Production begins next week." The OSM 2.0 was a marvel of collaborative engineering, The storage capacity of human oxygen tanks, combined with the quantum-stabilizing fields of Fraxian design and the crystalline flow regulators of Xerilian technology. What had begun as an emergency measure had evolved into something none of the species could have created alone. "Any word on the Draxnar?" Mara asked, returning to the more somber aspect of their mission. Zara's skin darkened slightly, the Aquilarian equivalent of a frown. "Our long-range scouts report they've withdrawn to the outer reaches of the Krell Expanse. Their fleet is severely diminished, but intelligence suggests they're attempting to develop countermeasures against oxygen-based weapons." "Let them try," Felix said with quiet confidence. "By the time they figure out how to counter OSM technology, we'll have moved 3 generations ahead." A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. The holographic display activated, showing the weathered face of Marshal Rinzal. "Captain Cyrus," the Fraxian commander nodded respectfully. "The joint fleet exercises are ready to commence at your command." Through the viewport, Mara could see the assembled fleet, 30 ships of various designs, all now equipped with the distinctive cylindrical OSM modules beneath their hulls. The fleet included vessels from all 15 Federation species, a unity of purpose that would have been unimaginable half a year ago. "Very good, Marshal," Mara replied. "Let's show the galaxy what real cooperation looks like." As the vanguard moved into position at the head of the formation, Mara reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From ridicule to respect, from isolation to integration, all because of oxygen, the element her species had taken for granted for millennia. The first time she'd heard Vexter mock their primitive engines, she'd felt shame and anger. Now she understood that true advancement didn't always mean abandoning the fundamentals. Sometimes, it meant recognizing their enduring value. "All ships, this is Captain Cyrus," she broadcast to the fleet. "Engage oxygen injection systems and prepare for synchronized jump." As the engines roared to life, the thunderous power of oxygen combustion now harmonized with the ethereal hum of quantum drives. Mara exchanged a glance with Felix. They didn't need words to express what they both felt. Pride, not just in humanity's contribution, but in what all the species had accomplished together. The stars stretched and blurred as the fleet made the jump to FTL, united in purpose and technology, a perfect fusion of the simple and the complex. Just like the engines that drove them forward into the vast, oxygen-rich universe. The Draxnar War Council convened in the shadowy chambers of their remaining dreadnought. The Vorthalan, Captain Glortax, now bearing the scars of severe oxygen burns across his chitinous exoskeleton, stood before the assembled commanders, his posture rigid with barely contained fury. 6 months, he hissed. 6 months since our humiliation at Terran Prime. And still, we have no effective counter to the humans' oxygen weapons. The chief science officer, a hunched figure whose natural armor had been reinforced with cybernetic implants, activated a holographic display showing the schematics of a Federation OSM. "The problem, Exalted One, is that oxygen is..." He hesitated. "Everywhere. It comprises significant percentages of most habitable planets' atmospheres. It exists in water, in rock formations, in the very bodies of most sentient species. We cannot simply eliminate it. Then, we adapt." Glortax slammed his armored fist against the obsidian table. "If the Federation can weaponize such a basic element, surely the superior intellect of the Draxnar can devise a protection. We are attempting to develop specialized carbonite shielding that resists oxygen-catalyzed combustion," the science officer explained. "But early tests show that the Federation's new hybrid drives can generate temperatures that exceed our material's tolerance." A low murmur spread through the council chamber. The Draxnar Collective had built its empire on technological superiority, particularly their advanced quantum drives and plasma weapons. Being outmaneuvered by oxygen burners had shaken their confidence to the core. "There is another concern." The intelligence officer spoke up hesitantly. Our spies report that the Federation's Integrated Tech Council has accelerated technological development across all species. They're sharing knowledge at an unprecedented rate. Glortax's compound eyes narrowed. Explain. The humans teach oxygen utilization. The Fraxians contribute quantum manipulation. The Xerillians add crystalline engineering. The Aquilarians provide fluid dynamics expertise. Together, they're advancing faster than any single species could alone. Unity through adversity, Glortax muttered bitterly. We gave them a common enemy, and now they flourish. For centuries, the Draxnar had employed a strategy of isolating potential rivals, ensuring technological advances remained fragmented and uncoordinated. The Battle of Terran Prime had shattered that paradigm. Perhaps, ventured an elder commander, whose battle-scarred carapace marked him as a veteran of countless campaigns. We should consider diplomatic options. The Federation's new strength makes direct confrontation increasingly problematic. Glortax whirled on the elder, mandibles clicking in agitation. Surrender? To oxygen burners and quantum fools? Never. Not surrender, the elder clarified calmly. Strategic realignment. If their technology is indeed superior in certain aspects, perhaps we too should learn. Silence fell over the council chamber as the radical suggestion hung in the air. The Draxnar had always been conquerors, never students. The very notion of learning from those they had sought to subjugate was anathema to their cultural identity. And yet, arrange a secure channel to the Federation Council, Glortax finally ordered, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. I wish to discuss terms. As the council dispersed, Glortax remained alone in the chamber, staring at the holographic display of the OSM that had so thoroughly defeated his mighty fleet. Such a simple thing, a container of compressed gas, had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Perhaps there was a lesson there, one that even the proud Draxnar needed to learn. 1 year to the day after the Battle of Terran Prime, the Federation Council chamber on Orion 5 was filled to capacity. Representatives from all 15 member species attended, along with, in an unprecedented development, a small delegation from the Draxnar Collective. Captain Mara Cyrus, recently promoted to Admiral following her pivotal role in the conflict, stood beside Dr. Felix Lang at the human delegation's podium. Across the chamber, Captain Glortax of the Draxnar observed with wary compound eyes, flanked by his science and diplomatic officers. Chancellor Zix raised his crystalline staff, calling the historic session to order. Today marks 1 year since the battle that changed our understanding of cooperation, technology, and the power of fundamental elements. It also marks the first day of formal diplomatic relations with the Draxnar Collective. Murmurs spread through the chamber, some hopeful, others suspicious. The wounds of war were still fresh for many. Before we proceed with the diplomatic agenda, Chancellor Zix continued, I invite Admiral Cyrus to present the annual report of the Integrated Tech Council. Mara stepped forward, activating a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Esteemed representatives, in 1 year of collaborative effort, we have achieved technological advancements that would have taken decades working separately. The display showed the various developments: hybrid quantum oxygen engines with 120% efficiency over previous designs, atmospheric extraction facilities that could harvest oxygen from even the most inhospitable environments, defensive systems that combined oxygen-catalyzed reactions with quantum shielding. Most significantly, Mara continued, we've developed the Universal Adapter, a technological interface that allows any species ships to utilize any other species' fuel sources in emergency situations. The display shifted to show a compact device that could be installed in any vessel's engine room. No Federation ship will ever be stranded without power again, regardless of which fuel type they primarily use. Admiral Quayox, whose initial mockery of human technology had given way to genuine respect, raised his metallic hand. And what of the military applications? Have we developed sufficient defenses should the Draxnar? He glanced apologetically at the Draxnar delegation. Or any other hostile force attempt another invasion? Dr. Felix Lang stepped forward to address this question. The Council has focused equally on defensive and civilian applications. Our current shield technology incorporates oxygen reactive layers that can dissipate energy weapons with 87% greater efficiency. Additionally, all major Federation worlds now maintain strategic reserves of both quantum-40 and compressed oxygen. From his position across the chamber, Captain Glortax studied the humans intently. The Draxnar had always prided themselves on technological supremacy. Yet these simple oxygen breathers had not only defeated his fleet, but spearheaded a technological renaissance throughout the Federation. When the time came for the Draxnar to speak, Glortax approached the central podium with measured steps. The chamber fell silent, tension thick in the air. "Federation Council," he began. His harsh voice modulated to accommodate non-Draxnar hearing ranges. "For generations, the collective has pursued advancement through conquest. We believed that superior technology gave us the right to dominate." He paused, mandibles clicking softly, a sign of discomfort in Draxnar body language. "The Battle of Terran Prime taught us otherwise. We witnessed a technologically inferior species overcome our advanced weapons through creativity, adaptability, and cooperation. This challenged our fundamental beliefs." Mara and Felix exchanged surprised glances. This was not the belligerent declaration they had expected. "The Draxnar Collective formally requests observer status in your Integrated Tech Council." Glortax continued. "We do not ask to join the Federation, not yet, but we wish to learn, to understand how different approaches to science and technology can complement rather than compete." Chancellor Zix looked to the human delegation. "Admiral Cyrus, as the founder of the Council, what say you to this request?" All eyes turned to Mara. She studied Glortax carefully, remembering the destruction his fleet had caused, the lives lost in the conflict. Yet she also recognized the monumental shift this request represented, a warrior culture acknowledging the value of cooperation over conquest. "The purpose of the Council," she said finally, "is to share knowledge for the benefit of all sentient beings. If the Draxnar are sincere in their desire to learn and contribute, I see no reason to deny their request." Relief visibly washed over Glortax's alien features. "The Collective will honor this opportunity," he promised. As the formal proceedings continued, Dr. Felix found himself approached by the Draxnar science officer, whose curious gaze kept returning to the holographic display of the OSM. "Is it true," the Draxnar asked hesitantly, "that you conceived of the oxygen injection system in less than one solar day?" Felix smiled. "Sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones. We didn't have time to develop anything complex." "Fascinating," the science officer murmured. "Our research processes typically take years of theoretical modeling before implementation." "Perhaps that's something we can both learn from," Felix suggested. "When to theorize and when to improvise." By the session's end, the tension in the chamber had noticeably diminished. Representatives who had been bitter enemies a year before now engaged in cautious but genuine dialogue. The Draxnar delegation, initially isolated at their podium, found themselves surrounded by curious Federation scientists eager to exchange ideas. As Admiral Mara prepared to depart, Chancellor Zix approached her privately. "You've accomplished something remarkable, Admiral, not just a military victory, but perhaps the beginning of a lasting peace." Mara glanced across the chamber, where Dr. Felix was deep in conversation with scientists from 4 different species, including a Draxnar. "It wasn't me, Chancellor. It was oxygen, the element that sustains life across countless worlds. now bringing life to a new era of cooperation. Outside the chamber windows, the newly commissioned UEFS Harmony, the first ship built collaboratively by all Federation species, prepared for its maiden voyage. Its distinctive design incorporated elements from each member world, and at its heart lay a revolutionary engine that could harness any available energy source, from quantum particles to simple oxygen. A fitting symbol, Mara thought, for what they had achieved. Unity, not through uniformity, but through embracing their differences and finding strength in diversity. 5 years after the Battle of Terran Prime, the Federation had expanded to include 3 new member species and established diplomatic relations with 6 others, including a formal, non-aggression pact with the Draxnar Collective. The Oxygen Revolution, as historians now called it, had transformed not just propulsion technology, but the very nature of interspecies cooperation. Admiral Mara Cyrus, now serving as the human representative on the Federation High Council, stood aboard the observation deck of the massive space station orbiting Earth. Beside her, Dr. Felix Lang, recently awarded the Federation's highest scientific honor, adjusted the settings on a holographic display showing the latest technological marvel, a self-sustaining atmospheric generator capable of terraforming previously uninhabitable worlds. 5 years, Mara mused. And sometimes I still expect to walk into a council meeting and hear Vexter mocking our primitive engines. Felix chuckled. Instead, he's leading the Aquilarian Science Division on adapting oxygen extraction for underwater habitats. Times change. Speaking of change, Mara nodded toward the approaching shuttle. Our guests have arrived. The shuttle docked with graceful precision, and moments later, the observation deck doors slid open to admit a delegation, unlike any that would have been possible before the war. Representatives from every Federation species entered, followed by, most remarkably, Captain Glortax and 3 other Draxnar officials. Admiral Cyrus, Dr. Lang. Glortax greeted them with the new gesture the Draxnar had adopted for interspecies communications, a slight lowering of the head that approximated a respectful nod. Thank you for hosting this historic occasion. The honor is ours, Captain, Mara replied. Or should I say, Ambassador Glortax. The Draxnar's mandibles clicked in what had come to be recognized as their version of a pleased expression. The title is still new. I find diplomatic missions significantly less hazardous than military ones, though occasionally more challenging. The assembled delegates moved to a large conference table where Chancellor Zix activated the central holographic projector, displaying a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy with Federation territory highlighted in blue, Draxnar territory in red, and the newly established neutral exchange zones in green. Today, Chancellor Zix announced, we formalize the galaxy-wide Resource and Technology Accord, an agreement that would have been unimaginable 6 years ago. The accord represented the culmination of years of careful diplomacy, open sharing of non-military technology, coordinated response to natural disasters, collaborative exploration of uncharted regions, and, most significantly, equal access to essential resources including oxygen and quantum 40. As the delegates reviewed the final provisions, Dr. Felix found himself seated beside Rinvax, the once skeptical Fraxian engineer who had become one of his closest collaborators. Did you ever imagine, Rinvax asked quietly, when we were installing those first OSMs on the Vanguard, that we would end up here? Felix shook his head. Honestly, I was just hoping we'd survive the week. Your species has a remarkable talent for turning desperation into innovation, Rinvax observed. The Fraxian approach has always been methodical, theoretical, seeking perfection before implementation. And now we've learned from each other, Felix replied. Your precision combined with our adaptability, the best of both approaches. Across the table, Lieutenant Zara, now Captain Zara of the Joint Federation Draxnar scientific vessel Horizon, was engaged in animated discussion with a Draxnar science officer about modifications to the oxygen extraction systems for use in methane-rich atmospheres. The oxygen molecules can be separated using a catalyst derived from Draxnar exoskeleton material, she explained, her translator struggling to keep up with her enthusiasm. 40% more efficient than our current methods. Ambassador Glortax observed this exchange with what could only be described as amazement. If anyone had told me 5 years ago that Draxnar biological material would be used to help extract oxygen for Federation ships, I would have questioned their sanity. Life is full of surprises, Admiral Mara replied with a smile. Usually the good kind, if we're open to them. The formal signing ceremony that followed was broadcast throughout Federation space and, for the first time, across the Draxnar Collective's territories as well. As each representative added their signature or biological marker to the accord, a sense of profound historical significance pervaded the observation deck. When it was Admiral Mara's turn to sign, she paused, looking out at the blue-green sphere of Earth below. My homeworld has seen countless wars and countless peace treaties, she said. But this may be the first one founded not on fear or exhaustion, but on genuine discovery. The discovery that our differences are not obstacles, but opportunities. After the ceremony concluded, and the delegates dispersed to attend various celebratory functions, Admiral Mara and Dr. Felix remained on the observation deck, watching as Earth rotated slowly beneath them, nightfall creeping across its continents. You know what I find most ironic, Felix said, breaking the comfortable silence. Oxygen, the element they laughed at us for using, is what creates the ozone layer that protects life on countless worlds. It's not just fuel, it's a shield. Poetic, Mara agreed. Protection through the most fundamental elements. Speaking of protection, Felix hesitated. The Council has approved funding for the Gateway Project. They want you to oversee it. The Gateway Project was perhaps the most ambitious undertaking in Federation history, a network of jump gates that would connect all member worlds, reducing travel time from months to minutes, and ensuring that no civilization would ever again face isolation during crisis. Me, Mara raised an eyebrow. I'm not an engineer. Felix? No. But you understand something more important than engineering, he replied. You understand people. How to bring different species together. How to find common ground even when it seems impossible. She considered this for a long moment, watching as the stars emerged over Earth's darkening horizon. 5 years ago, they laughed at our engines, she said finally. Now they're asking us to help build the future. Isn't that always how progress works? Felix smiled. First they laugh, then they fight. Then they say they knew you were right all along. As if to punctuate his words, the massive Federation flagship Unity glided into view, its hybrid engines glowing with a distinctive red-blue shimmer that marked the fusion of oxygen combustion and quantum technology, a perfect symbol of the journey they had taken. To oxygen, Mara said, raising an imaginary toast. The element that burns, breathes, shields, and ultimately unites. To oxygen, Felix agreed. And to whatever element we discover next that changes everything all over again. Below them, Earth continued its eternal rotation, surrounded by the ships of a dozen different species, all breathing, all burning, all united by the simple miracle of oxygen and the complex miracle of understanding.